Dune Awakening launches fully on June 10th, and with it a massive wave of people will be joining Arrakis to plunder for spice, set up a base, or get devoured by a sandworm. In this video today, I want to share my experience across the last 5 days of playing to give you a spoiler-free beginner's guide to some of my best tips. Now, all the stuff you're seeing right now, this is just trailers that the game has put out, so hopefully this isn't too much of a spoiler for you. But I want to help you avoid the mistakes that I made so you can be less frustrated with certain systems. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. Now, with a list video, that's a little harder to do, so you can find every single item that I'll be covering in this video today using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. Take a quick look at those and see if any of them stand out and navigate to what interests you the most. My biggest tip before we get started is that you please just play this game however you want. Everything in this video is instructional content, geared towards explaining something that is either complex, easy to miss, or a mistake I was making for hours on end that I just wish I had known earlier that the game doesn't explain. The game is young, so there's tons to explore ahead of anyone else, and there's even more coming that'll expand upon the amazing bones that Dune Awakening has. But that's too long to watch this entire video, so if nothing in the chapters interests you, or that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. If you are heading out and you found the information in this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those helps me out in a huge way. Lastly, you can find a link to my character class guide if you need help choosing a class, as well as my Twitch, where I'll be doing giveaways all launch week of the game. But let's get started here on getting the best start in Dune Awakening. So to start us off, in the same vein of what we were talking about in the intro, what is the best class to choose? There is no best class. This game has 200 skill points for you to take advantage of, so you can simply put points into whatever you find most interesting, and you can respec at any time by pressing this button. It does have a 48-hour cooldown. Now, you will choose one of 4 classes at the very beginning, but you can eventually unlock all those classes and go into all of the class trees. Let me just give you the progression of how long it takes to roughly unlock those classes to give you an example or maybe an idea of what to start as. Personally, Bene Gesserit, I know, is the last class you unlock, so I started with it because I also wanted to make like a quote-unquote Jedi build, so I wanted to go with Bene Gesserit and Swordsman. But the very first one you unlock is Trooper within the very first hour of the game. After that, you're going to unlock the Scientist here, and then you'll unlock the Mentat, and then the Swordmaster, and then the Bene Gesserit. By something around 10 hours of gameplay, if you've just been doing the quest, you will unlock everything. So don't worry about it. You'll be able to pivot into all of them and respec as you want, but hopefully this releases you of the analysis paralysis of which class to choose, because eventually you'll be able to play all of them simultaneously on one character. When you boot the game up, you'll be starting down here in the, what is this, Haga Basin South? Yeah, Haga Basin South. This is the location. Now, I don't want to show you all the locations here. I want you to discover them for yourself. But what I'll tell you is do not invest any serious time in that first base. You're going to quickly move beyond this location, and you'll never really have a reason to come back to it. I will tell you, though, that you should also try to put your base wherever you are near some sort of social hub, especially if you're in Haga Basin South. So that would mean kind of over in this region around there, not in the right side of the map. So basically, if you were to split this in half, choose the west side over the east side, just because otherwise, because you don't have any transportation in the beginning of the game, you'll be spending a lot of time moving around. This is true of everywhere that you kind of go around. These are bases, so don't worry about it. This is like me and my friend. As you jump around, the entire map is pretty large, but you'll eventually get very quickly transportation that moving from, say, this location all the way over to this location is not a headache anymore, especially when you get ornithopters, which allow you to not only just traverse this portion of the map, but it'll allow you to go to the overworld and jump to different regions. So don't spend a lot of time on your first base, and make sure you place your bases around social hubs, the hubs being the places that you get your quests from. This next tip is kind of hard to find, or I'm sorry, it was easy to miss. So I'm going to go ahead and press O on my keyboard. That brings up our the social screen, and I'm going to go to Communet. Now, from this log right here, from this area, you've got these radio stations. Now, if you've ever played, I have a special setting set because I'm a content creator. You can do it so it doesn't play any kind of copyrighted music. So I don't know if pressing this is going to show you anything fun, but these radio stations here are going to play music but they're also going to play like these audiobooks, more or less. They're incredible. Honestly, jump into one of these. So when you're just jumping through I almost said wasteland. When you're jumping through Arrakis, you can just listen to this stuff. I was playing with my friend, and him and I just kept getting quiet because we wanted to listen to a lot of the things that are going on. And there's a lot of kind of pulpy, over the top, almost like, would you like to know more? Like from Starship Troopers, that kind of stuff. Propaganda, that's the term for it. But there's a lot of fun things that you definitely check out in the Communet, and it makes playing really fun because you have something to listen to, almost like when you're jumping into like a GTA or anything like that. Jumping back into the skill screen, we've got two big skills I want to talk about. They're the main traversal skills. Well, there's three of them, but there's the two I really want us to focus on. Bindu Sprint from the Bene Gesserit, and the Shiga Wire Claw from the Trooper. This is basically a grappling hook, and this is a very fast sprint. You'll want these two because they will allow you to traverse the game world at a really fast rate, and you can use other abilities to stack these things together to move even faster, and I'll show you that off in a second. But basically, you'd go ahead and swap these two on anytime you're running around, just kind of looking for resources, trying to move to a quest location, whatever it is. Then eventually, you would swap these off whenever you say, hey, okay, I'm going to go fight someone. I'm going to now put in my combat abilities as I see fit. And when you unlock your third ability, you'll be able to flex around even more. So make sure you're taking advantage of those because it's so huge to moving around the game. And on that note of your traversal skills, let me show you how you can use a Suspensor, which you will get very early. This is, I deliberately am here, I'm using the Mach 1. This is the one that you're going to get in the initial portion of the game. And I'll talk about rare schematics in a second here, but you'll get this one very quickly and allows you to just kind of lightly float around. And you'll be able to use your traversal skills to kind of wombo combo these. So remember I talked about Bindu Sprint, right? So let's go ahead and press that. And that's going to allow me just to fly all over the place, right? And I can then use that grappling hook, the Wire Claw, to do the same exact thing. Right at that apex just kind of helps us go all the way up here, and we're good. And you can use these two in conjunction, right? Like I could have sprinted, done that big flying move, and then went ahead and, so let's go overhead over here. So you could really just put these two together. Now that I'm up in here in the middle of a video, this is really great for me. I feel really great and terrified at the same time. But you can also use them to kind of recover yourself when moments you're like, oh man, I almost died here. So you can use them to kind of slow your descent and whatnot. So you can see how moving with this and your Suspensor gives you a ton of mobility. There is another skill here too, the Suspensor pad, but it does require a little bit more finesse to use. But I think these two are a great indication of how you can use your traversal skills in conjunction with your Suspensor. You're going to be spending a lot of time harvesting resources, and sometimes you'll find resources in kind of hard to reach places. So if I go ahead and scan this, you've got that line. That line, if we go ahead and follow it, is the fastest way to break down a resource. Don't worry about that good efficiency thing. If I were to just spray and pray, it wouldn't matter. So let's go ahead and look at this one. Well, I can't see that line very well, right? Well, we can move, scan again, and the line moves for us. This allows us to find, you can see now there's multiple lines. We can find a better line to access from the angle in which we're looking at a resource. So don't feel like you have to try to find a line if you're trying to do a bunch of resource scavenging and it's slowing you down. Just scan it again and find a better location. There we go, we're good to go. And go ahead and get that resource. Researching is a big portion of the game, but there's also schematics. You'll see this little guy right here. You'll click that, and these are specific schematics that you're going to find throughout the world. They're basically the upgraded version of your already existing research knowledge. So for example, here's a leader Jean that you can find in the very first area that gives you a schematic that you can craft a special one. This one, for example, will have increased capacity. Or this weapon, for example, will drink the blood of things and put it into blood pouches. We're going to talk about that in a sec. So this is an example of, it's basically the game's like version of like unique items, right? If you're thinking of like a like an ARPG or something like that. What you want here is to know is that this little number reflects how many of these schematics you've got. So once you've produced one, you cannot produce it again until you find a schematic again. And you can buy those schematics, you can find those schematics, however the situation presents itself. But you'll also be using a special component here called spice infused whatever. This, for example, says spice infused copper dust, but this one says spice infused iron dust. We're going to talk about that too. Hold on. So what you'll do with these is once you've exhausted them, you'll have to go find other ones, but you'll basically prevent you from infinitely using it. Or if you die to a worm where you're going to lose everything, you'll need to go find these again. But they give you a pretty good power spike in between the locations of the different materials and different tech progression points. But they're a pretty big thing, and it's pretty much, it comes down to you exploring the game world to go and find them. Like this one I found scrounging through a location I'd been a million times, and I just happened to go around a corner I had not quite seen, and I found this in a hidden little stash. So the game really encourages you to explore to find these schematics. So without ruining where this location is, if I come through here, here you go. I've just found myself another schematic that I can take advantage of and use how I see fit. Oh, also, all the spice infused iron dust we're about to talk about. So this is an example of just finding these throughout the game world and using them. And one last thing on schematics here, once you find them, you have to either do this in a base or at a social hub. You'll hold down F, and that researches the schematic so that you can actually do it. You have 8 different things that you can set into your loadout, and you can quickly set things to a favorite and unequip and re-equip your favorite item. Let's take a look over here. We've got 1 as my sword, 3 is my gun. So you can see at the bottom that says T for favorite. Let's go ahead and press T. Well, press, yeah, it's T, press, yeah. Now it's got a little heart right there. Shows me this is my favorite item. So if I press 1 to bring my sword out, my sword's out, I press G, it will go ahead and sheath the sword. I press G again, it brings my sword back out. But if I double tap G, it will just switch to my favorite. So no matter what I'm pressing, double tapping G switches to your favorite. It's a quick way to navigate all these little buttons without fat fingering it like I do, where I'm like, oh, I don't want to build in the middle of combat. Let me come back into my sword. So you just press G and you're good to go. Rare resources are really important in this game. It's pretty much how you're going to make everything of substantial worth. You've got your generic stuff here, like, copper ore, but then you get stuff like these particle capacitors or these EMF generators. They're pretty big. But the 2 more important ones are what you're going to use for those schematics that we just talked about. You've got your spice infused copper dust, or in this case, spice infused iron dust. You'll find these in regions that correspond to that material. What I mean by that is, as you progress through each region, you're usually going to upgrade a material. So you start off with copper, you go to iron, then to steel, then to aluminum, and what have you. So as you go through the progression, you'll fight in these, I'm going to use the word dungeon because it's the easiest thing to understand, but it's a set location. So for example, here, this says, that little icon right there shows that it comes from a set location. That set location is a dungeon. Those dungeons will have these spice infused resources. What's cool about this is if you go do dungeons with friends, more resources drop, and we'll talk about loot in a bit here. But this is absolutely crucial because you need to get tons of these to not only just make rare schematics, but there will also be stuff later in the game that you'll want to create, like say, for example, the missiles on a ornithopter that require a lot of this stuff. So you'll need to kind of leverage these as much as you can, buying them or finding them as quick as you can. And doing it in groups allows you to find larger amounts quicker. When you take a look at your items, you can see what product it is, what kind of byproduct, how's it made, what materials, by taking a look at this little symbol right there, right there, right there, right there. And they will progress through the various crafting materials in the game. So when you go to break them down, you know what you'll be getting salvage wise, but it also gives you an idea if you find an item, like for example, this adept sword, like, oh, sweet, I've never seen that symbol. Well, I went to research, and if you go to, let's just press the weapons button. This is a salvage product into a copper, into an iron, into a steel. Salvage being salvage material as the material. Steel, aluminum, and that little symbol corresponds to it. And you hover over it, you can see right there in the upper right corner, that's the symbol right there, right? If I come over down here to duraluminium, so duraluminum. Duraluminum is what that sword was made of, right? So it's a huge step up. Also, you can see the name Adept versus this one is House versus this one is Artisan versus this one is Standard. So the name too is a part of that convention that shows you where the product comes from, what material it is used by. So you can see if I wanted to break down a standard disruptor, I'm seeing I'm probably going to get iron ingots, mechanical parts, silicone blocks, and gun parts. Some variation of that is going to be in the breakdown when I use a recycler. So it's important to know that because I didn't know what the hell that symbol meant for the longest time, but now I do. Blood is a major portion of this game. And when you first start off, you'll be using these small blood packs. You'll use your blood extractor, wherever the hell it is. Blood extractor to harvest them from corpses. You'll find this in abundance. And until you really get into other methods of acquiring water, it's the first, easiest, and most abundant way to do so. Small blood packs, you'll fill them up, then you'll dump them into a blood harvester. Eventually, though, you'll get medium blood packs. So when you first start off, you should have around 3 or 4 small blood packs. 3,000 capacity is not very much. You'll find that these will fill up quite quickly, and then you'll dump them into this guy, your blood purifier. Your blood purifier, go ahead and press deposit blood, will fill this up with blood, and it has a processing rate. And then that blood will dump into the water capacity of the purifier, which is 1,000 milliliters. Eventually, you'll get additional storage. Now, we're going to talk about how circuits work in the whole entire base, but circuit capacity is basically saying here, this is the total amount of water that can be stored. That's this right here, this bar, that can be stored in this entire base, according to the circuit that I've set everything to. So right now, this purifier will only store 1,000, and then the extra quote unquote runoff goes into all of these water cisterns, which all this you'll get within the first hour or two of play. So filling this up is crucial because water is not only crucial to your character and drinking, but it is used as a crafting resource, and it will become a huge bottleneck if you don't invest in this early. I didn't invest in it early, and I jumped into the new area, and I just didn't really have a lot of blood packs, and I took forever to try to craft additional resources like iron and then eventually steel because I just was bottlenecked with water. Now I've got this mamba jamba that processes at 8 milliliters a second, and you can see that I'm at capacity of my water. So this will stop if you have max capacity until you free some up, either by drinking it, depositing it, using it as a crafting resource, or by placing another storage device that can house the remainder of that blood. Looting in this game is important because you're going to be either playing with friends or you're going to be encountering people in the game world. So know that there's 3 different types of loot to deal with. You've got the loot from corpses. This also includes PvP, so killing people or NPCs falls into the PvP bracket. This is first come, first serve. Whoever gets there first holds it down and loots the whole thing. You've also got resources. These are first come, first serve. If someone were right next to me watching me do this, that would disappear in their game world as well. So, and same thing goes with any of these kind of laying around resources. Now, this is the time that that loot is instanced. Anytime you see a chest, any variation of chest, there's like 40 different chests in this game. This is instanced, meaning it's personal. I see this. If a friend was right next to me, he would see different loot, and we could both loot this and not pull from each other. So I could do this. He could come over to this chest and loot it as well, and it wouldn't be a problem. I did this with my buddy Chris all throughout the weekend. So that is a crucial thing to know, so that when you go to play with friends and do dungeons to get all the materials for all those schematics we talked about, know that any of the loot that you find in those chests is going to be exclusive to you, that you can then drop on the ground and share whatever you want. There's no bind on pickup or anything like that in this game. No trade or anything like that. So feel free to share whatever you find. Now, social hubs will have vendors. You've probably already encountered them in the first location, and they don't really have anything of particular note in the first location, but the second location, they definitely do. So I'm going to go ahead and go to here to trade, and you can see that we've got rare schematics available in the screen at the very top. They're kind of expensive, but you'll find that like some of this stuff is also pretty cheap. Now, the real benefit though is being able to soft tech up in an easy fashion. So take the blood extractor, for example. 2600 is pretty easy to come by, or the medium blood sac. We talked about how important blood sacs are, or the Holtzman shield, the Leap suspensor belt, the Dew Reaper. Any of these things cost you resources that you are initially gated by getting either through research, having the actual research to unlock them, or by the story. So for example, the Dew Reaper here requires you to use silicone blocks. Silicone blocks are a pain in the ass to make until you progress through the story. That will help you get them quicker. If you don't have that, then you'll realize that is a bottleneck in your resource. So go ahead and get the Dew Reaper through this. Just go ahead and buy it. This will restock every 24 hours, I believe it is. But here's a power pack. You can find a bunch of stuff in here, even like furniture. But the real best part, I think the last part is the best part. I'm so full of shit. But all of these components are really helpful to be able to acquire quickly and easily, because this way you don't have to go to the cave systems. You don't have to go find some of the research facilities. You don't have to go to a wrecked ship, because 750 is actually pretty cheap for any of these. So you can go ahead and use this stuff or these vendors to get ahead on resources you can't easily find, to kind of help you circumvent certain situations where you're like, dude, I just need like 3 more of these. I don't want to go all the way over to a wrecked ship or whatever it is. It is a great shortcut as long as you've got the money. Just don't hold on to your money, because if you get killed by a sandworm, all your money's gone. So make sure you stash your money. One of my last notes here is on your inventory management. This just took me a little time to learn, but you will find it too. I'm just helping you with the context clues. So you have 2 different types of storage capacity. Either the set amount, so our backpack can hold a max of 35 total items, or the total volume, this V right there. So I'm at 96 out of 175. Whichever one hits first, then that is, you're at capacity. And you can see if I hover over this item, it says blood extractor. Then right above the little wrench and cog, it says 4V for volume. And I can see a little colored bar. That colored bar tells me this isn't that heavy. It's pretty light. This one too, pretty light. But let's take a look at this guy. Okay, that's got 8V. So now it jumps me up, and it corresponds to these 3 color brackets, giving you an idea of the volume of, just by looking at this without hovering over anything, you can see the thing that weighs the most is right here, because this little guy right there told me this has the largest encumbrance on my volume of anything in my backpack. Let's go ahead and sort this here by volume. Let's go by it like 3 times. There we go. So just to kind of reinforce, right? This has the least impact at 0. This has the most. That bar will increase to show you the magnitude increase, right? So as I go and harvest more of this copper ore, that's going to eventually overtake the iron ore. Another kind of a heads up, fuel cells weigh a crap ton. So those will be something that might be weighing you down, but this is a way that you can manage your inventory without kind of getting lost in the pictograph of all these little symbols. This allows you to quickly look at your inventory and go, cool, that's heavy. Let me drop it. So that is a big tip for you. Another note here on your inventory management is the ability to focus on your character or your loadout to help you quickly choose items. So for example, if I press D, then here's all the items that I can put onto my character. If I press A and press A again, here's all the items that can go into my loadout section. So this is just a quick way to navigate this versus trying to, oh, where is the item that I want? You can just simply go ahead and bounce through them that way. It's a little bit easier than having to just simply force yourself through all the menus. All right, so this is the most complex and our last tip. It has to do with the circuits. Now, you won't be using circuits much. Basically, setting everything to circuit 1 allows you to access everything in the base. As long as you're in the base, you can pull from it to fabricate it, to build with it, whatever it is. But basically what I want you to think of is this left number is an input. This out number is an output. I wish I just said at the top input and output. There's a lot of things that I think just needs to be labeled differently in this game. So what happens here is, when for example, this small ore refinery, when I go to set this up, when I go to put items into it, I can set where the excess, so we're at a max of 5 out of 5 here, where the excess items go. And I can conversely, let's say this was a fabricator. Let's go to our fabricator. I can conversely set where the fabricator will pull its items from. So let's do this. We have this chest right here. I'm going to set this thing, I'm going to set its input to 4, and I'm going to set its output to 2, meaning anything on the circuit 4 that is over its capacity and needs to store the item will insert it into here. Well, and also, conversely again, anything that needs to use items on circuit 2 will pull from this chest. So let's set this up. We'll go back here to the refinery. We'll set the input here or output here to 4, and we're going to set the input to this fabricator to 2. Again, rehashing, the circuit here is 2 for the input, and the output here is 4. This is going to take things from 4 and put them out to 2. So let's see how this works. I'm going to take these copper ingots, craft all 8, and as they're crafted, because the ore refinery is at capacity, they're going to fill this up. So there you go. It's starting to fill this location with the copper ingots that we're creating because everything is full, like I said, in this ore refinery. So then conversely, I've used that word like 4 times in this tip alone, we're going to see that this is going to pull from 2, right? So it shows us that we don't have resources to do any of this, right? Because it's trying to pull from 2. If I set the storage back to 1, this will now pull from all of my available resources across the base. Again, circuitry is something that you're not going to use in the very beginning of the game, but it is a complex topic that is worth understanding, because if you're playing with friends, you can have friends on certain circuits. If you're playing with a guild, you can have the guild have access to certain circuits. Whatever the situation is, and however you want to present it, you can definitely take advantage of having this set up how you want. Or maybe you have this positioned, one of these crates positioned next to your ore refinery so that it's constantly dumping stuff out into it, so that then everything pulls that needs to use ore from this circuit, whatever the situation is. Circuits are a great way that allows you to navigate a lot of the storage in this game and a lot of the different resources you're going to be using. So at that brings our video here to a close. So hopefully this helped you out in understanding Dune Awakening. There's a lot of tips in this video. Every time I kept jumping into a tip, I was like, well, they should probably know that. They should probably know this, because there's a lot of nuance, and there's even more nuance I didn't even go into. I didn't discuss how when you leave the Haga Basin with an ornithopter, you can go anywhere on the map for free. But then when you come back in, it's a specific angle. There's a lot of little complexities to this game. And we're only 5 days into the early access launch, and now the actual full launch of the game. So there's even more stuff to be discovered, even more stuff to be added, DLCs coming from the season pass, all sorts of crap is going to be hit this game. If you've played Conan Exiles, you know how Funcom likes to kind of constantly tweak all the little sliders and buttons of this game. So I'm excited to see where all this goes, how all of it affects the future of whatever the game's going to be, all sorts of stuff that I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. But as always, guys, if you have any tips for beginners that they should definitely know about, let it be known in the comment section below. I didn't go again into like a lot of the nuance, like base crafting and so on and so forth. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.